Hello everyone, welcome to Scorpio Rising in Depth, plus Mars, the ruling planet, in all houses. So the rising sign is much more than just your personality. The moment you were born is the gateway into this incarnation. From that point we can make very good judgments about all areas of your life, such as your health, your relationships, wealth, career, home life, everything. It's all on this video. If you know where Mars is placed by house, please check out on this video also, because that contains important information as part of your karmic destiny. If you are new to my channel, sub below and let's start. So the fixed water sign of Scorpio, very different to the other water signs of Cancer and Pisces, because the energy is fixed and therefore so purposeful. Scorpios are very focused in every area of their life. Fixed means focused. Water means emotion. Well, what do we have, everybody, when we have fixed water? We have ice. We have ice. So this element of ice, you need to keep it in mind. It's a very important factor in this analysis. You see, fixed water is stabilized water, but it's very deep. It's like a lake. Cancer is the sea, moving and volatile. Pisces is a river, completely different experience to a big lake. Lakes have mystery to them, don't they? One thinks of the Loch Ness monster, etc. Lakes are deep and unfathomable. In that way, Scorpio holds secrets. It holds power and mystery. You see, Scorpio, everybody, has a lot to do with the 8th house. And this house is about all the secret occult knowledge. Scorpio contains this knowledge. If you were born with this sign rising in your past lives, you have been taking on a tremendous amount of occult learning. And this stays a part of your psyche. And you are here to continue on with that. You will have an intense attraction to all elements of mystery, all things which are hidden. Now, this could be anything. It could be on a mundane level, detective stories, murder stories, all of that sort of stuff. Or it could be the deep secrets of life, the occult knowledge, like astrology, but all sorts of occult knowledge. Why do you want this knowledge? Why is it so important? Well, first of all, because you've been studying it in your past lives, definitely. But you know that this is the secret to power. Power, what sort of power does Scorpio want actually? Well, the deep meaning is power over emotion. Water is emotion. Scorpio has come here to fix that emotion, because when your emotions take you over, as it were, as we all know, we become powerless. We become weak. And this is Scorpio's Achilles heel. They know that they have to avoid vulnerability. You see, deep inside this powerful, dynamic sign, there is a fear, because the 8th house is about fear. And their fear is of being known to be vulnerable. Are they vulnerable? Yes, they are. How are they vulnerable? With their feelings. Their feelings, their emotions are so deep, so obsessive, and they can be jealous sometimes. Their emotions can overwhelm them. They can become completely incapable of doing anything because of this emotional excess. And they know this. And therefore their deepest desire is to control this, but most of all, to not show this weakness to anybody else. Now, this element of fear of showing weakness actually fits into what I'm going to be talking about when I talk about relationships. But relationships actually go far better than you might expect, because what is the greatest factor about having Scorpio rising? It's sexuality. Everybody thinks about Scorpio as being a sexy sign. Well, it is. Why? Because of this desire to control, this ice. You see, people who are very cool, very icy in a way, we know deep inside they must have emotions. And it's very attractive to other people when people are like this, when they contain mystery. Scorpios don't reveal themselves easily to other people in intimate relationships. They take it very slow. They're very mysterious. So this gives them a sort of sexy aura, which is very attractive to other people. Now, are Scorpios obsessed with sexuality? People think Scorpios are, well, completely obsessed by sex in itself. Not necessarily. It's a very important thing to them because it's about power. It's about power and control. But I do want to bring it down to the most important point here. The power which Scorpio really needs is over themselves. That's the highest point about Scorpio. It's having self-control. I think it was Napoleon Bonaparte, actually, the famous emperor, who said, if I could keep my anger under my chin, I could rule the world. I think he was Leo in some way, but maybe that's the Western system. Anyway, whatever he was, I haven't seen his chart. That is actually what Scorpio wants to do. Scorpio has this feeling that if they can control their emotion, they're going to gain success and power. And it's very true because their emotion is so deep and unfathomable because of lifetimes of situations in which they couldn't control emotion. They are here to gain that control. The greatest weakness then or disaster for Scorpio is really when they let their obsessions get out of control. Okay, when they get obsessed with anything, with wealth, with gaining power, with any sexual situation, with a relationship, immense possessiveness and jealousy can overwhelm Scorpio. Not just Scorpio, but their opposite sign, Taurus. But that's, of course, on their relationship house, and I'll be coming to that soon. So this desire to possess and to control other people they have to try to contain that because that can backfire on them, okay? But on the positive side, because the 8th house is a house of a crisis, Scorpios are very good at dealing with anything which is out of control. So they're a great person to have around when things are just not going well and you just can't cope because it's what they like to do. They like to get to grips with situations which are out of control. And this may actually spill into the sort of work they do, whether in some sort of security situation or spy detective in a very special case. It all depends where Mars has gone. But they like to be in control of their workspace and of their career. It's very important, and I'll be talking more about this on this video. One aspect, of course, of Scorpio is that they do tend to hold on to grudges sometimes. Again, it's a bit of a negative thing, this, but they can do this. If they don't go for the higher thing of gaining power over themselves and letting other people be what they want to be. That's their greatest lesson, letting other people be and just gaining power over themselves. But if they're reaching out to control other people, to want people to fit into their scheme of things, and if they feel in any way betrayed by another person, and the slightest thing that you could do could make a Scorpio feel that they have been betrayed by you, because they've got very fixed idea of what you should be doing or not doing around them. You see, because they're very loyal people, by the way. Scorpios are tremendously loyal. They're fantastically loyal friends. They will go through death and hell for a friend or for a loved one. They will go through hell if they have to. And they expect you to do the same. So the slightest betrayal or the slightest thing which you do which seems to them like a betrayal can be devastating to them. And this can lead them to hold a grudge. And of course, this is negative Mars energy. Now, I haven't actually spoken yet about the rulers of Scorpio, so I'm going to bring it in now. How could I forget? Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, but in a negative or feminine sense. So whereas Aries is bringing all that fire into the warrior of battle, this is the water of the feminine Mars. So this is a powerful Mars too, but it's not in an open way. It's a power of control, the power of being able to manipulate situations from behind the scenes. This is the Scorpionic way. And of course, I want to bring in the other ruler of Scorpio. The other ruler of Scorpio is, of course, K2. Now, K2 gets left out from many interpretations. I would never do that. On this video, I'm going to analyze Mars only because that's the best way to go about it, to keep in with my series. But watch the house of your K2. You have another ruler, Scorpio. K2 has control of you too. You see, K2 is all about this occult mystery and power. It's such a deep entity. It's not about like Rahu, Aquarius, and gaining control of society. K2 is about self-control and liberation. So the ultimate goal of Scorpio is not to be this sexy being, you know, this sexy person who attracts people and has really, you know, power over people by their sexuality, as is often portrayed. The ultimate goal of Scorpio is to get over all that, is to control sexuality, to control sexual desire completely, and to gain liberation from this material entanglement, because that is what K2 is all about. Okay, with that in mind, let's look at the areas of Scorpio's life. So for Scorpio, the second house is ruled by Sagittarius. Sagittarius, Jupiter ruled. Jupiter also, by the way, rules your fifth house of good fortune and past good deeds. Therefore, when we speak about family and wealth, these are very fortunate areas for you. So first of all, wealth. Jupiter gives you good luck, pure and simple, in gaining assets in your life. You are able to attract money to you. The fifth house lord is speculation, so you may be lucky in speculation. You have a philosophical attitude to money, though. You're not a money grabber, but you just deal with it very sensibly and very well. This happy-go-lucky, I'm not too bothered about material assets, works in your favor, and it probably comes from your early childhood as well. You are very philanthropic as well. You like to give. You're very charitable because these are all Jupiterian factors. So you deal with money and you accumulate it according to how strongly placed Jupiter is and how well aspected to. It's a lucky area for you very often. Family also, early family, very early family is philosophical also. There is a family value system which is instilled into you very early on, which is very important to you. It becomes lucky also for you that you continue with these sort of values. Now, they can be any sort of values according to your culture and to your Jupiter, actually, and where it is by sign and house, and of course in the D9. But it's going to be something that's very much a part of who you are. So you are very much taking on board those early family value systems. They can be cultural, they can be religious, or they can be philosophical or even political, but you take them on board and you carry on with them. And actually, because it's your fifth house lord, you instill the same values into your children also. Third house is travel and siblings, ruled by Capricorn. Saturn and Mars are not good friends, so there's some disharmony here. Your fourth house lord also, so these areas, home, siblings, and travel, are a little bit tricky for you, Scorpio. What's going to happen? First of all, siblings. You are a very dutiful sibling, very responsible for your siblings, and they for you sometimes. But if Saturn is ill aspected, particularly because Saturn is not a friend of Mars, there is some disharmony. There's some level of not being on the same wavelength there. If Saturn is well placed, though, e.g. in this sign, then wow, you're going to have a very strong bond with at least one sibling. But it's still a dutiful thing, and that's the point. Indeed, for some of you, they may live with you later in life as it's your fourth house lord, or you live with them. Sometimes that can be seen. Now, when it comes to travel, are you a good traveler? Yes, you're a very organized traveler. Saturn from Capricorn makes you organized in every respect to travel. But here's the point. Do you enjoy it for itself? Not necessarily. Saturn is about purposeful action here, work-related activity. So if you are doing it for work-related purpose, you're fine with travel. You're very good at it. But if Saturn is ill aspected and there's any delays or frustration, you find that very hard to deal with. You just find it hard to just sit back and relax and just enjoy the journey, just to take a book maybe and just relax, unless you got a very strong Saturn. Mostly though, when you do travel, it's got to serve a purpose. So you're going to have your computer on the train and be doing some sort of work. You like it to be purposeful and to have an end goal. That's the point. Finally, when it comes to your skill base, so anything which you learn as a skill, whether it's an artistic skill or a practical skill, again, you don't do it for the absolute joy of doing it. You absolutely want it to serve a purpose. So if you're into gardening, then you want to grow some vegetables. If you're into music, then you want to make a living from it, or you want to make it serve a purpose in your life. If you're into artistic activities, once again, you like it to have a day-to-day function in your world, okay? Because Saturn wants everything to be absolutely useful. So again, it's not a spontaneous, joyful thing. It's about utility. Now, the home or the fourth house, where the heart is. Yeah, home is where the heart is ruled again by Saturn, but this time Saturn's most strong sign, multicone sign, Aquarius. So it's very important to see how strong Saturn is in your chart, though. If he is strong, then this is very good for your home life, because Saturn gives you a comfortable home life. You like to stay in the same place. You don't like to move home very often. You're very concerned to make your home a very busy, work-orientated place, because Saturn's about work. You may absolutely have a time in your life when you work from home, but it's more likely to be about the group activity, because Aquarius is about the larger group, the larger society. So you bring people who are part of your social network into your home. You like to do that. It's a very busy home with lots of people coming and going as well. Aquarius is also a bit of a quirky sign. So people often go into a Scorpio home and think, wow, I can't believe their home is actually like this, because the picture they actually have of you as Scorpio rising, and in fact Leo at the top of your chart, gives a very clear, different view of yourself, is not often what they see when they go into your home. And this all depends on where Saturn is. For some of you, it can be very oddball, a quirky sort of home with a very strange sense of maybe decoration and so on. Very unique. It's a very unique home. Or for others, if you've got a more, let's say, stable Saturn position, it's a very ordered home. It's a very, let's say, old-fashioned home in some way. So it can be very, very modern, very, very quirky, or very old-fashioned. But the key is, it doesn't seem to actually be what people would expect it to be as they see you generally. And as I say, you don't like to move home. Moving home for you is a really difficult thing to do, because Saturn doesn't enjoy that sort of change. And this is a fixed sign, of course, just like your ascendant. So moving home is often very difficult and something which you try to minimize normally with this fourth house. Now, your fifth house from Scorpio rising is ruled by Pisces, a very spiritual sign, and once again, Jupiter. I've talked about how your early upbringing was very philosophical, had a system of belief in some way. It may have been religious, it may have been political, it may have been something to do with culture, which had a very strong impact. You instill that into your children. Children are fortunate for you with this sign rising. How many you are going to have? Look at the other planets involved in this house and where the Lord has gone, and of course the D5 chart. But you're good with kids. You have a very easygoing attitude with your kids. You bring them up in a very easygoing, philosophical, kind way. Normally, you're very, very good with them. You can become an educator too because you love to be around children. But here's the other factor though, when it comes to your education. Jupiter is difficult from Pisces for education. Why is this? Because Pisces is a bit, how can I put it nicely, spaced out. Yeah. Pisces is so spiritual, so away from the mundane academic situation that sometimes academic education is difficult for you. You just can't keep your mind on the same track. So there may be big issues with your education. You may sort of lose your track on a course and feel you just can't continue with it. You're not very down to earth with your education, okay? So it can be a difficult thing. You get your learning from spiritual aspects, okay? Jupiter gives you knowledge from your past lives, and you learn at your own pace in your own way, okay? In some way, you become your own guru, your own teacher. You take up an idea and you research it yourself in your own time. So fixed education, and I mean, it all depends on your personal Jupiter. If it's very exalted, you can go all the way up there to PhD, but it won't be a conventional. There'll be some stops and starts, and you'll be thinking, am I on the right course? Should I take this module, that, module? There's some confusion going on because Pisces gives that sort of confusion. It's a very emotional sign. So you're a self-educated person. You like to do your own thing in education. Now, the sixth house of your health and enemies. Wow, this is very intense for Scorpio, isn't it? This is Aries, Mars ruled. So your Mars, though, from Scorpio is, as I've just been talking about, very emotional, very deep, very introspective. But this Mars in your sixth house is the Aries Mars, up front, taking on the enemies, taking on the health situations. You deal, if you have a strong Mars, well with your health. As soon as you've got something wrong with you, you deal with it, you go to battle with it, and you win that war if you've got a strong Mars. Other planets in this house, though, can change that, so you have to watch for that. But on the whole, you deal with your health in a Martian way. You just deal with it as it has to be dealt with. And you deal with enemies. You deal with them in the same way. You don't want to have enemies. You don't want to have open rivals disturbing your introspection. But if you do have them, you have no problem whatsoever dealing with them. You see, Scorpio, as I've talked about negatively, can be a little bit vindictive sometimes. And that's something which you have to watch out for, because your ruler is a sixth house lord. You're competitive by nature, though, and you easily attract enemies. Anybody who is competitive attracts enemies, and you can be very secretive about how you're going to deal with them, and then all of a sudden you take some action, because Aries just suddenly takes that action. So you've got to be careful not to hold a grudge, to try to be more positive, but you deal with a lot of conflict in your life, and you deal with it swiftly, though, if you've got Mars well aspected here. In regard to your health, just a little bit more detail, though. Don't forget, Mars from Aries rules more than anything things to do with the head. So common ailments can be headaches, migraines, and things like that. Things are actually brought on by stress, okay? Because you get very stressed when things get out of your control. I've talked about how control and keeping a good grip on things is very important to you. So when these sudden things like health issues and enemies and rivalries come up, you find it very stressful, and you just can't rest until you've dealt with them. And this can affect things like headaches and so on. But of course, to get a full aspect about health issues, you have to see where Mars is actually placed by sign and aspect. So now we come to a very important house for Scorpio career, ruled by the Sun and Leo, the sign of power, leadership, the boss. As I say, you are the sign of power, just like Leo is. And whether you want power, whether you want leadership or not, Scorpios often find that they are thrust into those roles just by chance. You see, people see your skill. People see that you have leadership skills and they reward it. So very often you are the first one to get promotion. You are going up that ladder whether you want it or not. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. If you're a cleaner and you become the supervisory cleaner, you get picked out from the crowd because people see your potential. It's a very fortunate thing. If your sun is very badly aspected and ill placed, it could be different. But on the whole, though, if your sun is just medium placed and mediumly aspected, not completely trashed, then you're going to find that you're picked out, that you shine in this way. You do have good leadership skills. You just have to be careful of one thing, and that is that your sixth house is Martian led, and you bring that conflict with people who are working for you. So you're very good actually in business, excellent as a self-employed person. But if you employ other people, you've got to be aware of that aspect of competition and that aspect of conflict that could occur sometimes. But on the whole, though, if you've got a powerful sun, let's say you've got a sun in Leo in the 10th house, or the sun in another powerful sign where it's very, very strong, then you're gonna go far. Your career is going to take off and it's going to go all the way to enormous success because the sun shines here so brightly. Of course, what sort of career depends on where the sun is. I mean, Leo itself is, of course, the sign of the stage as well. So you may be attracted to acting, to performance, and so on. But you've got to see very many more aspects there. You need to look in your D10 and see how your sun is in that chart also. But it's a very powerful situation for success. The only downside is that sixth house, that conflict house, where you get into conflicts with your co-workers, where you get into conflicts with those who work for you, and even with your boss, because you are such a powerful person that people sense this and you become their rival. Your boss could become your rival, or they could see you as a rival. So you have to be aware of that and stay self-contained. But on the whole, for whatever career you want to do, this is a very powerful and positive placement. So last but not least, of course, relationships for Scorpio rising. Taurus ruled, and Venus also rules your 12th house. We have to bring that in too. You see, Taurus and Venus is such a lovely, stable, domesticated situation, isn't it, on your 7th house? And if your Venus is even mildly strong, it doesn't have to be super strong. Super strong, very good, but mildly strong, you can attract a very good mate easily. You are attractive to people. You have no problem attracting partners. And you are actually, you can actually change a little bit in a very intimate relationship. You can let go of some of that possessiveness over time. But if your Mars is ill aspected, especially if Saturn is involved, it can be difficult even over time to let go and to trust other people to be totally there for you. But mostly though, it's a very optimistic thing. Most Scorpios do well in long-term relationships because you like stability. You value stability and you value having somebody there for you. You can attract a very loving, kind, caring person from this Venus. Also someone who takes care of you also in some way. Venus as your lord of your 12th house, though, means that sometimes conflicts can develop in your relationships, and they develop probably from your possessiveness and, worst of all, though, secretiveness, because that's the 6 houses away from the 7th. It's about having secrets, not being open. So as much as you can, you have to try to be open. You see, you're the one in control normally in your relationships because Mars is the 1st house lord, not the 7th house lord. So just like Taurus rising, that there can be a bit of an imbalance in that, relationship where you're the boss, not the other person. That can happen, and it can cause an imbalance and some disturbance. If you've got a very weak Mars and a very strong Venus, your partner can be your boss in that sense. But either way, it doesn't really matter. It's not always equal, that there is this level of an imbalance happening there because of this Venus Mars dynamic here. As I say, just like Taurus, they have this same issue. But just like Taurus, you're very possessive and you hold on to people. So very often, if you do have relationship splits, you actually stay in touch with these people and you actually stay friends with them. That can often happen. This can happen for Scorpio rising and for Taurus rising, where this Venus Mars gives a very strong connection that can be lifetime, even when there is no personal relationship anymore. But on the whole, though, it's a very fortunate thing. You can get a very long lasting, stable relationship with this Taurus 7th house. So just a quick point, everybody, before we move on to look at your ruler through the houses. What is the secret of why the Ascendant ruler is so important? This is the answer. The Ascendant Lord is like a guide, a planet sent to guide you through this incarnation. But what they hold are the karmas that were unfinished, a particular portion of deeds that you have to perform in this life. Completely different to Ketu, different to Atmakaraka. This is a particular deeds which you have to do. What are those deeds? Where do you have to perform them? That is shown by the house placement of your Ascendant Lord. And in the Mahadasha periods and the Antvadasha periods also, you get the opportunity to perform those particular karmas when you're in that Ascendant Lord Mahadasha or a friendly planet to that Lord. Have a check on my video on Mahadashas and Ascendant Lord. Okay, so let's now go through all the houses where your ruling planet might be placed. So Mars, ruling planet of Scorpio, is in Scorpio in the first house. This has very many positive aspects, but you must look out for other malefics in the 4th, 7th and 10th, which can cause complications with the purity of this Mars. Mars on the whole here gives you purpose, gives you determination, gives you ambition. It gives you actually a great deal of strength and power from past incarnation. Okay, so you are here to be strong, to protect other people, to be purposeful, and to manage things, that's for sure, but including yourself. If there is any affliction to this Mars, it can become complicated and there can become secretiveness. You can, not be open with other people. You can have secret, a sort of secret even agenda sometimes. So, but that's a very negatively aspected Mars. But it's your first house, so it impacts your whole life here. It's very important that you are very open with everybody, that you are very clear about your objectives, okay? And if you can do that, it's tremendously powerful for success. Mars, ruled from Scorpio, is in the second house in Sagittarius. Karma related to family, probably taking birth again in the same family in some way, bringing back that culture, that religion, that philosophy as a major factor in your life. That is the same thing for all Scorpios. They've got this family philosophies I've been talking about, value system, but for you it's of great karmic importance, okay? So conflict also in the early family situation is going to probably be there. And you see that and you think, yeah, I could have dealt with that in a completely different way. And you grow through seeing that situation, and you actually find a way to deal with family conflicts in a fairly positive and optimistic way. You see, this is also about your speech and you're dealing with other people directly, not in a larger group, but smaller groups. Okay, third house is larger communication. So you can have a very direct way of speaking. You can just say things as they are, because Sagittarius is just not thinking about things very much, and you actually have a good sense of humor normally with this Mars. You can be a comedian even in some way with this Mars, because Mars in the second house often has that aspect of comedy to it, because you're very sharp. You can analyze people's actions and you see behind people's masks. So you've got talent in dealing with difficult communication situations here. So the only issue is if you are too forthright and not caring about other people's feelings. You do care about their feelings because Sagittarius does, but Mars here, it gives you that spiritual warrior side where if you see that values are not being upheld, you do not hesitate to say your piece. Okay, so you're a bit of a spiritual warrior. You're out there to instill values into the world, those important values which you actually got from your early environment. The ruler from Scorpio has gone to the third house into Capricorn. It's a magnificent placement actually, because Mars is so happy to be in this house, okay? Mars works well with the third house concerns over time, and as your ruler, it is here in an exalted position. So practically in a communicative way, you deal and you manage affairs of the world very well. You can absolutely have a karma to do with communication in some way. This could be your job, this could be your life experience. You could work in media, you could teach, you could do something which is mass communication based, but in a very down to earth Capricorn way. You are immensely ambitious because Capricorn is the sign of the 10th house naturally. But the issue is, of course, even though Mars is exalted in Capricorn, it's not always a good situation for Scorpio in that Saturn is not always on your side as much. So actually you have to be careful about conflicts. If you are involved in any media situation, there will always be conflicts. There will always be communication issues, okay, on a big scale. You have to look at the aspects of Mars and where the Lord has gone. Schooling, very early schooling, can be a challenge for you in some way and be a bit topsy-turvy sometimes, but it gives you immense intelligence though. And so it's a very fortunate thing. You're a very capable manager, and therefore in whatever area you work, okay, it is very good. Finally, though, the definite karma with siblings, particularly, of course, brothers, because Mars is male siblings. So some special karma there where you have to be involved with them and them with you in some intense way. Particularly, this would be, of course, Mars Mahadasha, if you do have that Mahadasha, or in those Mars periods too, but have a check of the ruler of the third house. So Mars as your ruler has gone to the fourth house, a quadrant house, giving immense power to your personality from Scorpio. But in Aquarius, Mars is going to be a bit contentious, especially in the fourth house. So karma coming from past lives in your family with contention. There's going to be contention in your early upbringing. There's going to be contention in your family. There may be quarrels in your home. There may be difficulty finding peace with who you live with. Again, you can't say absolutely until you've checked out aspects of Mars and where Saturn has gone. But Mars isn't at ease here. You have a real concern with your early upbringing, your early culture. You sort of want to get away from it, but you keep on getting drawn into it again. You seem to find it hard to escape from. If you desire that, it's really hard. You keep on getting drawn back. And of course, Mars Mahadasha periods are going to be very intense for you with this family and domestic situation. What you also find is that obviously Mars is not directly aspecting 7 houses away. He's aspecting on the 11th house here and the relationship house. So this Mars is obviously going to cause you some relationship issues because they are going to be focused in the domestic sphere. So if there are some other grahas here easing that 4th house, maybe like the moon, then that could help things immensely. So Mars, ruler from your ascendant, is in the 5th house in Pisces. Karmically, you have unfinished karma with children without any shadow of doubt here. In some way, even if you don't have children, then teaching children or something to do with some sort of education situation. Mars is strong in this house but is struggling a little bit because Pisces is not Martian in nature, okay? But Mars is supporting your philosophy, instilling it into your children. Mars gives male children. Mars may give conflict with those or one of them anyway. But Mars is definitely going to affect your education, okay? So it's going to make it a bit choppy. As I said, that's a tendency in any case. So when you are in the Mars Mahadasha, educational situations become a little bit difficult for you here. Now, Mars is aspect, of course, 4th aspect on your 8th house is actually strong and probably very good. It enables you to deal with a crisis very well. You deal with really difficult situations in a very creative Martian way. So this actually gives you an underlying set of power. You have really good ideas because Pisces is so creative. Pisces sees around and sees the big picture. So you're very good at dealing with all the difficulties of life in a very creative and actually very optimistic way. So Mars, as your ruling planet from Scorpio, has gone into a similar Mars sign, Aries. Such a powerful ruler you have here. The issue is, of course, it's in the 6th house. But let's go for the positive first, because there is a lot of positives here. You are a tremendously resourceful person, tremendously powerful, tremendously hard worker. You give your all to your work 100%. You give all in anything which you do, but you're a little bit impulsive. The thing is that you really want everything now. You're not prepared to wait sometimes. If Mars is having good aspects, though, it doesn't really matter. You power ahead in so many areas of your life. You're very health conscious, my goodness. You're always taking care of your health, exercising, doing something to make yourself fit. You're not a lazy person. You could never be a lazy person with this Mars in Aries here. You like to fire ahead, though, on all guns blazing when you've got something which you would like to say or something which you want to do. Again, it isn't always vocal, actually, but it's certainly physical. It's a very physical thing in the 6th house. So you attract contention. Despite being a positive, forward-thinking, get things done sort of person, you attract contention. Why? Because people sense that you are just going to bulldoze through and they find it a little bit too much. Okay, so you attract opposition, you attract enemies, but in some way, deep down, you quite enjoy it. You like it when you've got enemies. In fact, for you, it's boring if there aren't enough people to compete with because you are tremendously competitive. And if you're really honest with yourself, life would be just very boring and staid if you didn't have these aspects. So you have to stay ethical, you have to stay fair, you have to stay above board, and you can absolutely defeat your enemies. You defeat the opposition, you resolve all of the conflicts here. Final thing is that Mars can affect how you eat. I've seen this in a strange way. 6th house, 2nd house, food aspects. Now, the 6th house is very much to do with food and how you digest food. So be careful. You like to eat on the go. You're very much a fast food person, You have to watch health aspects of this side of your life. But on the whole, You're a very health conscious person, a very purposeful person, a person who will get things done in life. You are going to be the first one off the mark in any situation. And you're a very good person to have around when things get choppy as well, because you're not afraid to meet things head on. It's actually a favorable situation. Now, Mars as your ruling planet has gone into the seventh house of your chart. Contention. Straight away, Mars is in Taurus. Now, Mars is mediumly placed in Taurus. You know, Mars is slowed down in this Venetian luxurious sign. So relationships take so much of your energy in this incarnation, and there can be conflicts because anybody who has Mars in any sign in the seventh house is going to have conflicts. But you have a particular karmic destiny here to deal with those conflicts because Mars is your ascendant lord. So ascendant lord has gone into your seventh house. This is quite important because relationships take up so much of your energy that in the end that's why they cause contention, because you're becoming frustrated with how much you have to give in relationships. But that's a karmic destiny and you have to go along with it. You have to pay attention to marriage, attention to relationships in this incarnation, and you may attract a very Martian partner, and therefore those Mars energies have conflict. Okay, that can happen. Now, Mars is your sixth house lord, so this is why it increases that contention aspect in relationships. Okay, you've got to look at where the Lord has gone in your seventh house, obviously, and other planets involved, which may calm this down a little. But relationships take up so much of your time and energy that you have got to make sure that you can give yourself some respite from this. Okay, so marriage, relationships, it's going to be huge karma here, but you've got to make sure that you don't forget yourself, you don't neglect yourself in these concerns. So Mars has gone into Gemini from your Scorpio ascendant. This lightens up things actually for you personally, okay? But it doesn't in a way because it's in the eighth house. So it's a dual aspect. You're very deft at dealing with money, very good at dealing with joint finances, very good at dealing with other people's money. It's a very good business sense here. You could go into law definitely because of your sixth house ruler being in this house, and it's the third house from the sixth house. You're very skillful dealing with conflict, dealing with litigation. All of these things are very highly skilled. But Mars is going to cause some underhand things here. It's going to cause contention. It's going to cause you to be always not sure what other people are doing. You're always looking for the secrets behind everything. Of course, yes, it's going to take you to occult knowledge in a huge way. You're going to become skilled in this. You could be a very good astrologer. You can be very good at anything where you're seeing under the surface of things. You've got skills from your past life as it's your first house lord. But sometime in this incarnation, there's going to be issues with financial affairs which are shared in a business partnership or in a marriage partnership, or just wills and inheritances. And depending on what other planets are involved and where the Lord has gone, this can be very good for you with a huge inheritance, or it can be difficult for you depending on those aspects. So Mars, Lord of your Ascendant, in the ninth house in Cancer. Well, yes, you have a debilitated Mars, but don't be afraid of it. Mars in Cancer is very emotional, very deep, and very disturbed in some way because you're trying to find calm. So you are going into philosophy, into foreign cultures, into higher education with like a warrior attitude. It's your sixth house lord. You are going to find conflict in foreign lands, conflict in higher education, and conflict with your father. Absolutely. These are all karmic aspects. You are here to find calm inside, to be patient. Patient is the key for Mars in Cancer because there's so much frustration. One of the issues is that you are not expressing emotions in a very open way. You may think that you are, but it's in an agitated way. You need to learn to deal with other people in a much calmer, sympathetic way. That's the deep karma here. But as I say, it's going to be a very exciting life when you're going to have so much movement and change in your life, and you are deeply philosophical, deeply religious, deeply concerned with these aspects of life. You just have to avoid forcing your views onto other people because Mars becomes so forceful here. It's not like Mars is weak, it can't do anything. Mars becomes even more forceful. He's on a battle and he's in an ocean and he's having to deal with the storms and the winds. So you're always agitated, always on edge. So trying to find some deep inner calm is your deepest need here. Now, Mars, ruler of Scorpio, is in the 10th house in Leo. It's a royal Mars. You are working with the king. This is very favorable. You can go up that ladder super quick. You absolutely have favors of other people. The only issue is competition because Mars is your 6th house lord. You are going to have tremendous competition in your career, tremendous battles which you have to face with your competitors. If this is well aspected Mars, you will win them. If it's not, there's going to be ups and downs, and that's going to be very frustrating for you. Your ego is very strong. You do not take interference from anybody. You are very determined, very forward looking, and you make an excellent leader. You're a superb leader. But if Mars has some difficult aspects, you've got to be careful that you're not too dominating and that you allow other people to express themselves. But on the whole, it's a very good karmic backlog here for you. But you are here to complete leadership aspects which you didn't complete in a last life. So don't be afraid to absolutely put yourself forward. Don't hold yourself back. You have very good leadership skills. So Mars, ruler of Scorpio, is now in Virgo in the 11th house. Now, on the whole, to have your ruling planet in the 11th house is favorable because it helps you to move forward with all of your desires and to fulfill them if Mars is well aspected. But there is a bit of a tricky karma here because Mars in Virgo is very critical, super critical. Mars is your 6th house, the Virgo house lord. So you are a super critical person, super analytical. And where does that all go? Into your network circles, into your friendship circles. So you may attract a lot of backbiting in your circles, or you may give it out. You have to be very, very careful to be open with other people here. Mars is very much about finding perfection here. Now, people are not perfect, you're not perfect, so you need to relax a little bit and give people a bit of slack. You like to organize other people too, because Mars here is about the big network groups and being sort of the main person in that and dominating. So you have to be careful to give other people a bit of slack, and you may think, hey, it's not me, it's my mates, it's my friends, they're the ones who are always on my back. Yeah, that's because Mars can attract it as well as give it out. So what's your karma here? Your karma is to be a team player, Scorpio. Your karma is to be a good team buddy, to care about the other people around you and to work for them. You are very attracted to really big organizations, to politics, to big movements, where you are, maybe like the ecological movement, things like that. It doesn't really matter what it is. That all depends where the Lord has gone, Mercury. But Mercury is a tricky planet for Mars sometimes. Okay, so you want to just get on with doing your job, getting things moving fast in your life, because that's what Mars wants. But being in Virgo, it gives you this need to attend to the details, okay? So you can become bogged down in all the minor details of life. And as I say, it's going to particularly affect friendship circles. So many of your friends will be karmically people that you have to work this through from past lives. So you are very good team play. You bring people together. You put energy into the group. So make the most of that. That's your karmic destiny. So Mars as your ruler from Scorpio is in Libra in the 12th house. 12th house rulers can be difficult, but in some ways you've got a benefit here from it. Why? Because Scorpio is a very secretive sign, so this increases some of your natural aspects. You are very introspective. You like time alone sometimes. The problem is that although you have the drive to be alone, although you have the drive for for doing some sort of research and study, and you're into all the spiritual aspects of life very, very strongly, Mars gives you a karma of interacting with other people through this Libra factor. So Mars makes you argumentative here. So you want time alone, but you're just going over things in your mind that you've said to people. Yeah, it's hard to relax. Mars is always here going to bring you into contention with other people. It's a 7th house from your 6th house. Mars is your 6th house lord. So contention is always going to be there. You're always finding a reason to give the opposite point of view, and you enjoy that argumentative aspect of your relationships, but it's going to be difficult for you. Here's the thing. It's your ruler, so you have to find a way. Ultimately, here's the main karmic factor. Here's the main issue. You have to find a way to meet people halfway. You're going to find it hard, but you're going to have to find a way to meet people halfway and to bring harmony into your relationships. Mars can take you into foreign lands absolutely as part of your karmic destiny to finish off activities there which you have not finished off. And there may be relationships there as well. That's because it's a sign of partnership, Libra. But more than anything, even though you need time alone, even though you're very introspective and very thoughtful and you have so much study about, all of this occult knowledge coming from Scorpio, you need to have a balance, because Libra is about balance, a balance there. So you need not to cut yourself off, okay? Because you need other people, you need them around you very, very much. But despite this, you get into so many arguments and so much contention, you've got to find the middle ground. That's your karmic situation here. So I hope that was useful for you, Scorpio, to understand yourself more deeply. If you are new to my channel, sub below. Coming up soon, more videos on Vedic astrology. Goodbye for now, and God bless everyone.